28 years, 4 months, 13 days, and 11 hours. That was my age at the moment Mom left the world and me behind. I had been staying in the apartment and commuting to the hospital, but I couldn't bring myself to stay nights. So I was not there when Mom took her final breath. I didn't hear her last words. Maybe she would have whispered, "It'll be okay, Michael. Keep living. Be happy." The doctors told me she passed peacefully in her sleep. The ringing in my ears drowned out their assurances. After she was gone, I did the same thing I always had. I hid. My only company was her voice, which called out to me in my mind. Sometimes, the voice apologized for leaving me behind, or it would berate me for abandoning her. She wasn't alone. Other times, it would be Dad. He would slur like he used to after a couple of six-packs and shout the hateful shit I grew up with. I was 29 and huddled up in my dark apartment. Maybe out of grief, I obsessed over finding some way to bring Mom back. It may sound irrational, but her death left me with no other solutions but the supernatural. In a fugue state, I dug through the deep web and old abandoned forums. I had spilled litters of my blood throughout that year of rituals. Seeing the dark red liquid flow from my body calmed me. Her lingering voice, buried in my thoughts, urged me to look deeper. Through many ceremonies, I recognized telltale tugs that connected me to the paranormal. Those little signs kept me going. They were fate admitting its mistake. I had dug so deep on the internet, I was sure I'd hit a dead end soon. But after one late night of sifting through dead links, buried long ago and archived, I found the key to what I'd been looking for. The forum began with an image of a stone tablet with ancient Arabic writing. The original poster had requested a translation of his tablet from a fringe linguistics community. He said he found this tablet buried in the sand on an excavation mission in the Middle East. He felt a strange draw to it and believed it chose him, so he hid his discovery from his team. After some debate in the forum, they settled on it being a method for summoning a djinn. Legend said the creature would grant any wish for an appropriate price. After stating he'd try the ritual himself, the original poster disappeared, never appearing on the forum again. Nobody else had the stomach for it, especially when it asked for a flesh sacrifice. But I knew there was something different about this summoning. Some force I couldn't comprehend guided me, and I wouldn't miss the chance. First, the ritual required a letter with request. Next, the summoner had to mark the letter with their blood and wrap an offering inside. Finally, it had to be placed on the ground and burned. Just reading all of this, I felt an energetic buildup in my room. It was dangerous, but the static was just as exciting. I grabbed some paper and scrawled out my wish. "Give her back to me. I don't care if you have to steal her from heaven. Save her. I'll give you my blood and body. Come, demon. Name your price." I tried in vain to stifle my screams as I sawed off a section of my ear with a dull steak knife. Through tears, I cut a deep gash on my palm, a fresh addition to my ever-growing collection of scars. The blood dripped onto the unceremonious graph paper. The spark from the Bic lighter engulfed the letter and its contents instantly. It disappeared into a blue fireball, vanishing before my wide eyes. The blast knocked me to the ground, blowing me backwards, and the shock loosened my bodily senses. I pulled myself to my feet, whipping my head around the room for a sign of the ritual's success. My body shivered in the frightening cold that swept through my apartment. Pure silence engulfed the world. The tension was so thick that I trembled, teeth grinding together. "Where is it?" I thought. "Holy shit, did it work?" With the lights off, my sight was useless, and the clock's ticking echoed painfully against my sensitive ears. I got up to find the switch. My legs were jelly. I shook and collapsed every few feet. The room was infinite. I wasn't trapped in a box. It was more like a vast, lifeless void. My ears rang louder and louder, and my heart hammered. My animalistic brain shrieked warnings of imminent danger. After a veritable lifetime of crawling around aimlessly, I found a wall and leaned against it.
It's going to kill me. I fucked up, didn't I
thought.
Djinn, where are you? I called you to serve me.
I shrieked into the darkness. My warbly voice was met with more oppressive silence.
What if I just pissed it off?
I wondered. I thought coincidence was the answer, but I was pathetic. Who was I fooling? Definitely not a djinn. The seconds passed on, but they may as well have been decades. Was it a fluke? Did the djinn not fully cross over? I thought. Finally, I heard something. A meandering whistle that filled the void with its unsettling melody. Then, a chuckle. Through the impenetrable darkness, I heard it speak.
Hello, fragile human. So afraid, but why? I won't bite you.
The whispery voice settled around me, like it was coming from right over my shoulder.
I read your letter. What a shame it was to lose your mother. Why don't you give me your broken heart? I'll fix it,
the demon added, a hunger clear in its voice. I whipped my head around the room, but as it spoke, the voice echoed first behind me, then in front, then reverberated like I was in a cave.
You've piqued my interest. I want more. I want to see you suffer.
The djinn's voice lowered to a growl.
You're so close already, but I want to see what it takes to break you.
Its voice wavered between gruff, deep tones to higher-pitched, lilting speech. Two glowing eyes like high beams opened a few yards from me, or maybe a few miles away, and light flooded back into the room. It had simple but alluring androgynous features, with black hair down to the ground. It was very tall and thin, and wore a white three-piece suit. Its eyes shined like the bulb of an anglerfish. The djinn's grin was too long. It stretched up into its cheekbones, and its sharpened fangs poked from the toothy smirk. I didn't know what to expect, but the demon's aura sent my skin crawling and crushed me to the floor. The pressure made me vomit. It strolled closer to me, the infinite distance shrinking. Once it stood just a few feet away from me, it stared down at my trembling body like prey. I couldn't break away.
Please stop,
I squealed.
No, Michael. My fun is just beginning.
Its mouth opened, unhinged, like it was going to devour me. Its breath was hot and wet. It drew closer. I knew that my head would fit snugly in its jaws before being ripped off my neck. Its long, pale fingers caressed the bloody stump that was once my ear.
Explain to me, Michael, what you want, and I will tell you what I will take from you.
The djinn whispered to me, its mouth a few inches from the remains of my right ear. The djinn backed away from me, twirling on its heel before finding a seat on my tattered sofa.
What? Not going to ask if I want a drink?
It sounded amused, which I figured was best for my safety, so I needed to keep it that way. I was too captivated to speak for a long moment, leaving me gawking with my mouth open.
I don't tolerate waiting for long.
Its voice darkened, and its eyes shone brighter. Every second brought me closer to being ripped to shreds.
Michael, put the tea on, now.
I was scared shitless. How could it expect hospitality? I pulled myself to my feet with incredible effort and darted out of the room. When I boiled the water in my kettle, I spilled a bit on my hand and nearly dropped the entire thing. The djinn laughed at the show from the couch and crossed one leg over the other.
Tell me about your mother, Michael.
Even while sitting, I could nearly meet its eyes.
Sit,
it demanded. A chair appeared from nowhere and landed behind me. I lost my balance and stumbled into it. While I caught my breath, the djinn was already tapping its foot and resting its fist on its chin, clearly bored. I cleared my throat and found my voice.
She was the most important person in my life.
I tripped over my words. Dad always screamed at me when I stuttered. Even when I was an adult, I couldn't forget cowering every time I flubbed anything.
Mom was my only friend, my only family too. Without her, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I rambled. Having to dredge it all up always threw me off.
The world is so loud. Too many people, too many things. I can't take it.
I hit my forehead as if to reset myself.
Mom never gave up on me. She held me when I cried and made the bad things disappear. The bad people.
The kettle whistled loudly, causing me to jump.
The tea is ready. Will you keep prattling on, or will you make me a cup?
The djinn interrupted.
I'm so sorry. I'll be right back.
Its gaze followed me, and a sadistic smile right under those eyes made my skin crawl. I brought the djinn's tea. It stood and closed our distance as I entered the room.
Put the tea down over there.
It gestured to an end table.
Your backstory already bored me.
It paused for dramatic effect.
I can create a divergence in reality, as real as this one, just for you, where your mom will be alive and healthy. Is that what you desire? Yes or no?
The djinn drummed his fingers. The cup of tea on the end table steamed, but the djinn had no interest in it.
It never cared about the tea, did it?
I thought miserably.
What does that mean? How would...
My chest tightened as it put a sharp finger to my throat.
Yes or no, Michael? What about that did you not understand?
It snarled.
I understand. I do.
I held my hands up in surrender, but my body shook so much that it was hard to stay in that position. The djinn smirked and withdrew its claw.
Yes, that's exactly what I want.
I replied. As much as I feared for my life, the glimmer of hope kept me from collapsing on the spot. If I could have Mom back, it would all be worth it.
There will be a cost, and it will certainly be steep. How about your life, Are you willing to die for your precious mother?
The djinn's nasty grin was widening.
You love her, don't you? You owe her everything, don't you?
His face drew closer to mine.
Well?
My face went pale. Mom was my world. I thought I was prepared to give anything for her. But with death inches from my face, I realized what a coward I really was. No matter how awful life was, no matter how much I suffered, I was too afraid to die. If I sacrificed my life to save Mom's, I wouldn't even be around to be by her side. So what would be the point? I couldn't give my life, even for her. Mom would have understood. She always put me first. I couldn't live without her, so she shouldn't be able to live without me. It's only fair, right?
I can't give my life. Anything but that.
I hid my face in shame. My tears welled up, and as much as I tried, I lost all composure. My legs gave out, but I collapsed. Before hitting the ground, some invisible force caught me, holding my body in place. The djinn stood high over me with that awful grin plastered on its face.
I had pegged you as a coward the moment I laid eyes on you, but you've exceeded my expectations. Bravo,
it chided.
Well, your life never particularly interested me. I'm more curious about that little mind of yours.
The djinn placed one finger on my forehead.
What do you mean, my mind?
I asked. The djinn's nail dug into my skin, but not enough to draw blood.
Well, Michael, I have grown old. I have seen thousands of humans live and die, but my curiosity has yet to be satiated. I enjoy humans. You're full of endless possibilities.
The djinn glided into the middle of the room, its arms spread wide like a seasoned ringmaster. It moved with no mistakes, nothing wasted.
As I don't have one myself, save for my jars on a shelf in the office, I know too little about the human brain. I want to take it, stretch it, and mold it. I want to pull the threads of sanity to the absolute limit.
The djinn had a wistful look about it.
My past subjects snapped. They are now useless carcasses, filling hospital spaces, their catatonic bodies being spoon-fed slop. You, Michael, have something different.
It held out its hand.
Join me in a little experiment. That is all I ask.
I flinched as his hand drew closer to me.
How am I different? And what kind of experiment?
I braced myself. What would set the creature off? I knew it wasn't fond of questions, so I kept my gaze on the floor, hiding from those blinding eyes.
Firstly, how should I put it? You're the perfect type of pathetic. Secondly, it's quite simple really. I want to test your mental fortitude to find the human limit. I want to isolate you, Michael. Isolate you so completely that this world will be a distant dream. You will remain in your solitude for what will feel like 100 years. Not a second will have passed out here.
The djinn's pace picked up with excitement at the prospect of my situation.
If you give up before the time is up, you will never see Mom again, and, of course, you will pay for wasting my time. Believe me, you will wish I had killed you.
It held out a big but delicate hand.
Do we have a deal?
It never dropped that nightmarish smile. There wasn't enough information, and I couldn't trust the djinn. I didn't think it would lie to me. From what I remembered from my research, their kind never lied. But it spoke in half-truths and withheld information. It wasn't a game I could win. As much of a risk as it was, I needed to ask more.
Will I
started. The djinn put a finger to its lips, and it stole my voice.
No more questions, Michael. I will not physically harm you, and all you have to do is stay in the space I create for you. I will not sabotage you. The whole purpose of this is to gain knowledge. I would not ruin that.
The djinn was becoming impatient once again.
This is your last chance to back out, with consequences, of course. But you wouldn't do that, Michael. Shake my hand.
The djinn practically growled. The hand would swallow mine. It would crush it to bits, break my bones to tiny shards, and its promises could steal my soul. Even knowing all of this, I couldn't deny the spark of hope in my chest. If I took the djinn's deal and succeeded, I would have my life back. If I failed, I would probably be tortured or enslaved or some equally horrible outcome. If I back out now, I could live out my miserable existence until I begged for death, too cowardly to end my own life. The consequence of not trying was just as bad as that of trying and failing. I had nothing to lose, right? I put my trembling hand to its cold, smooth skin. The djinn's massive fingers swallowed up my own as we shook on the deal.
Well, Michael, welcome to a century of nothingness. Good luck. You might find solitude to be a friend. You may also find it a torturous burden. See you in 100 years,
it said, and released my hand. The djinn stepped to the center of the room and held out an arm. A plain white door rose from the floor. The djinn's eyes shone until all I could see was yellow light.
Go on ahead, Michael,
it ordered. The door swung open, and I stood before the darkness on the other side. Before I could step through, the djinn put a hand on my back and pushed me, sending me stumbling over the threshold. I screamed when I lost my balance. As I plummeted into the void, the djinn waved at me while growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared. I fell for hours. Eventually, my descent halted, and I hit the floor. I was in a flawlessly white space. The djinn had dressed me in simple, loose clothing that I could not pry off despite every effort. The floor had no friction whatsoever. My attempts to get up led to falling, not that I could feel the impact. There was no bed, bathroom, and nothing in the room besides the spotless walls, floor, and ceiling, save for a single object on a simple shelf out of reach. An hourglass the size of my body trickled sand at a snail's pace, what must have been 1 grain a minute. I scooted across the floor until I was up against the smooth, slick walls. The first day of my new life began. Day 1. I spent most of the day acclimating to my new environment. My brain couldn't make sense of the experience. There was no smell, no sound, no shadows, temperature, nothing. That one is the hardest to explain. But it was neither hot nor cold, just a temperature that didn't register with my brain. I had an initial panic about the feeling of being so wholly trapped, but this loneliness wasn't new to me. I lived almost my entire life in a few hundred square feet and didn't want it any other way. My brain was built for solitude. I had been training for this my entire life. But I soon learned that this kind of isolation was different. I was used to entertainment, food, and other bodily needs. This place had no external stimulation, just my mind. I was trapped alone with the thoughts I spent a lifetime hiding from.
What if the djinn was lying?
I thought.
What if I never make it out of here?
My mind raced faster.
What if I'm dead? What if meeting the djinn was a dream?
More and more disastrous outcomes reared their ugly heads.
I'm not going to make it. What if I quit? Who knows what it will do to me?
I sat against the wall. I may not have had a heartbeat, but my mind was scrambling. It had only been one day, but the cracks already showed. The hourglass was no help. It only held a few grains of sand so far, and I couldn't track time. There was a century ahead of me, a lifetime. How could I possibly hold on that long? Whenever I wanted to quit, I saw the djinn's teeth ripping me apart and Mom's corpse rotting under the ground. So, I gritted my teeth, clenched my fists, and watched the grains trickle to the bottom of the hourglass, one by one. Day 30? What was I at? 2 million? I had been counting since the first day without stopping for a second. The constant stream of numbers in my head kept the flood of thoughts and fears at bay. Eventually, the numbers stopped coming to me. In the vast silence, screams from nobody filled my ears. I heard voices, remnants of my past and warnings for the future.
It hurts, Michael. Can we go home? I don't want to be here anymore.
A child told me, my 8-year-old self.
Where's Mom? We need Mom. She'll know what to do.
My older self berated me for my stupidity with an apathetic mimicry.
You deserve this. You literally asked for it. What do you have to complain about? You couldn't protect Mom from Dad. You couldn't keep her alive. You're as helpless as ever here. Do you really trust that monster that brought you here?
Mom spoke to me too. She begged me to quit.
Michael, you've always been so gentle. This kind of place isn't right for you.
She cried.
I miss you so much. You wouldn't believe it. I needed you as much as you needed me.
Tears streamed down her imaginary face.
It was always you and me. Until your father was taken away, we only had each other. I'll always love you. You don't need to hurt yourself for me.
Dad told me to grow up.
Look at you, weak as ever. I tried to make you presentable, but you never had it in you. You still don't. Go ahead, be miserable for the next 100 years. Maybe you'll get your bitch of a mom back. I don't care.
Dad shouted.
Where did I go wrong? How did you become so pathetic?
Dad's voice drowned out everything else. No matter how much I chewed, my fingernails wouldn't tear off. So I rocked myself back and forth while gnawing at my numb hands and arms. It made me feel so guilty and so small. There was nothing and nobody to save me. All I had were my thoughts. That was hell. Not fire and torture, but my own company. The tattered thread of my sanity threatened to snap. So I made a decision. If I were trapped away from the real world, I would make my own, all within the confines of my head. This crazy swirl of voices was cruel, and I could do better. Maybe it was delusional, but I might as well do something. Year? Day? In my beautiful neighborhood with my kind, caring neighbors, I took my morning walk like every day for the past decade. The sun was shining, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. I strolled down my block with a spring in my step. My place was a bit shabby, but it had a real charm to it. I bought it cheap and fixed it up myself. I took pride in my little abode. I had finished my morning calisthenics and was off to work. I made it to the office right on time. Ruth, a larger black woman with a gentle smile, placed a stack of folders on my desk. Ruth leaned down to my level and said,
Today's cases, sweetheart.
She put her hand on mine.
You work harder than anyone, Michael. If you ever need some rest, I can pick up the slack.
She frowned and patted my shoulder. I appreciated her care for me, but things had changed since I began my life in that town. I took care of myself and I supported my friends.
Don't worry,
I assured her.
I haven't worked a day since I got here. Nothing in my life has ever been more fulfilling.
I beamed. The folders on my desk showed displaced children in the area. It was my job to find homes for the kiddos. That was my calling. Seeing their smiles as a happy family picked them up healed my broken heart. For many years, I served my community. I received smiles and hugs. I held warm little hands and guided them to a full life of love I never had. But all good things had to end. For the past year, little things had gone wrong. That day, it came to a head. I picked up the cases and clacked them against the desk. One folder slipped out of the pile and onto the floor. I went to pick it up and froze when I saw the face on the file. There was a photo of myself at 13 years old. It said both my parents were dead, one killed in prison, the other by cancer. The folder slipped out of my trembling hand.
Ruth?
I barely got my words out.
What the hell is this? Oh, a real sad case, that one. The dad was a heavy drinker and an angry drunk. He'd beat his wife black and blue. One day, he got in a bar fight, killed some poor guy, and was locked up for life. There's no way,
I muttered. Ruth continued.
That's how it goes. Anyway, he was stabbed a few years later in his cell. The worst part is that his wife died of cancer around the same time, leaving the poor kid alone. He's an orphan living in the system now.
She paused before revealing more.
He won't speak, they say. Some kind of trauma.
I put the folder in front of her face.
It's me, Ruth. Why? It's me.
I needed to compose myself. The focus that kept everything together was slipping.
What do you mean, dear? You're right here with me.
She took another peek at the folder.
It says Ezekiel Jacobson. Michael, are you okay? If you need some rest, please don't force yourself.
Sure enough, my face was gone from the folder. The sky flickered outside. The network of threads holding this reality together showed in my mind's eye. I wove the sky back together. I walked out of the building, my head on a swivel.
Hiya, Michael!
Jonathan called out to me. An older German man, Jonathan was on break from doing his little odd jobs. He was kind, as good with a hammer as he was at giving solid advice.
Are you okay, bud? You look a bit pale.
I'm fine, Johnny. Just having a bit of a day, that's all.
I couldn't keep my eyes on him. There could have been inconsistencies or contaminations.
Okay, pal. Listen, if you need anything, I'm here for you.
He placed a hand on my shoulder.
You know, Michael, I never had a son myself. But if I did, I would have been proud if he was half the man you are.
He smiled and said the exact words I needed to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
We met eyes, but far behind, just barely visible, I saw my dad walk out of a building. He caught me with a scornful glare before disappearing, gone as quickly as he came. The sky rattled when I caught sight of him. My vision swam, and I nearly collapsed. I couldn't even feel rage after all those years. All that washed over me was fear. Some things never change. Dad wasn't welcome. He was a glitch in the system. How did he break through? How could I keep him out for good? My world was out of focus, and my consciousness shook. An inky blackness swallowed the sky. Once again, I dove into the structure of the world. Something was breaking and letting the pain in, and too much pain would tear the whole thing apart. Every time my concentration slipped, just the slightest bit, I'd lose something else. I found it, the dam holding back the memories of reality. Holes and leaks had formed, causing tears in the narrative I wrote for myself. I patched it quickly, but more cracks appeared as quickly as I patched. It was time to increase my diligence and focus on my life in my new world. I didn't know how many more disturbances my world could handle before it collapsed. I tried to push through the next few days, but the dialogue was strange, and the narratives were incoherent. Heavy rocks blocked my stream of consciousness, and more little reminders pulled me back into the ocean of trauma that I had built my world on top of. It took a while, but I slipped into my routine once again. Year unknown. Day later. Things had been slow at work. We were going through a season when few parents were looking for adoption, but we held down the fort. No matter what, not a single child would be left behind. Since the last incident, it had been quiet and lifeless. My friends' expressions had lost their light. Their faces were often frozen and emotionless. The news was the same as always. The stunning anchor with olive skin and brown eyes on the TV blared in the office.
"Once again, we have sunny skies and comfortable weather,"
he said with a grin.
"Yesterday, Jezebel lost her stuffed bear, but Peter retrieved it. Peter continues his good work in the community. Thanks from all of us to the fire department."
He tapped his stack of papers against the desk and went silent. I was running out of news ideas, and things got very mundane. Day after day, they reported on cats in trees and fluff pieces that made progressively less sense. It put me constantly on edge. In this fragile world, I spent every moment afraid something would inevitably push it over the edge. The anchor suddenly dropped the grin and stared off into the void. He looked back up, now sporting a grin too wide for his face.
"What a sweet little town, Michael. How quaint, this world you built for yourself."
The anchor's smile widened.
"How much longer can you last, Michael?"
His eyes flashed yellow.
"Hey, Michael, why not look at the hourglass?"
I pushed my body into my chair, white-knuckling the armrest. The anchor stood up and locked his eyes, not on the camera, but on mine.
"Who knows? Maybe time is nearly up. Come on, just a peek."
He sat back in his chair. He laughed as he swiveled back and forth. The hourglass was a looming reminder of just how bad it really was. I never checked it. If only a few years had passed, I'd crumble. The anchor drummed the desk.
You really are so easy, you know.
Delilah, the beautiful, fair-skinned secretary and office princess, stalked behind me. She and David had an on-again, off-again relationship. They loved each other, but neither could muster up the courage to make the first move. That's the story I gave them. I created my dream girl and couldn't fathom us together, so I gave her a dream guy. Delilah, with a familiar grin and glowing yellow eyes, slowly made her way to me with a dance routine. She stepped gently and effortlessly, hopping on a desk and twirling like nobody was watching. Her elegant steps were entrancing. This trance ended the moment she spoke. She held my head in her hands.
Michael, aren't you sick of your imaginary friends? Of this cardboard world held together by twine?
Delilah moved within inches of my face.
All these sickly sweet drones, constructed entirely from scraps of the TV tropes and lazy stereotypes that convinced you of what an ideal life would look like.
Delilah backed up and sat atop the desk across from me.
It's sad, really, to be surrounded by the life you never had. You could call it a mockery.
Delilah poked me with her foot.
It's faker than fake, Michael.
The grin stayed plastered on, even as she spoke. Memories flashed through my mind, little things I locked away. For a moment, I was back in my bed just after Mom died. That old me was racked with sobs and disgustingly malnourished, a walking corpse. I held a family portrait with Dad cut out to my chest. After Mom died, I used to retreat into fantasy worlds all the time, but they felt fake. Everything felt fake. Even my real life, the actual pain I went through, felt fake. Then, I snapped back into my world. Luke, my boss, was there to meet me. Luke put an arm around me.
"Well, Michael, quit or go mad?"
Luke's sharp teeth clacked as he spoke. His large frame and stern features pressured me as his grip tightened.
"Either way, it will certainly be entertaining."
Luke brought me up with him. His eyes turned back to their deep, piercing blue. He suddenly went back into character, relaxing and patting my shoulder.
"Michael, you good, buddy? You look like you've seen a ghost."
My legs gave out and my stomach wrenched.
"I have to go."
I stood up and ran out, away from my imaginary friends and coworkers, away from my fake job and further into delusion. My mad dash led me back home, or the place I called home at least. I opened the door to my empty living room and walked in, crashing onto my couch. I missed Mom. Even in this dream world, I couldn't really make it without her. I was playing my role just right, but without her, it felt like I had no anchor to any reality. Not even my own little game of house. The kitchen was completely empty when I stepped through the awning. I couldn't waste mental energy recreating taste. and my diet before moving to this place was just frozen foods and snacks. I looked at my dining table and was greeted with a shock that caused my entire world to nearly fall apart. It was Mom. She sat perfectly still in a chair in the room's corner.
Mom!
I shouted, running up to her.
How are you? I thought you'd never...
I went to throw my arms around her, but I hit empty air.
Mom, it's me! It's Michael!
She didn't react, her face frozen in a vacant stare. I waved my hand in front of her face, but didn't get a response. From the beginning, I tried to imagine Mom in this world, but my mind blocked all attempts. The guilt over failing her was too powerful. Aside from that, when I did nearly succeed in imagining her, something was always wrong. It ended up being uncanny and demented. It was less painful to keep her out of my world completely. Before Dad went to prison, Mom would protect me at the cost of her frail body. After that, we would huddle together in an unending darkness. As much as we were the only comfort the other had, I think we also sucked the life out of each other. I couldn't stand to look at her.
You shouldn't be here!
I slammed the wall next to me, rattling the house.
You're not her! Get the fuck out now!
I screamed, with tears in my eyes. My composure eroded. Time stopped in my world, and cracks appeared in the air. The intangible thing that looked like Mom fixed me with an empty stare. Tears welled in her eyes and ran down her cheeks. All the while, she kept that stoic expression. Her tears threw me back into those miserable memories. We were back in my room, where she had to coax me to leave the safety of my blankets after Dad punished me. I was a kid again. She lifted the blankets and hugged me. She mouthed something I couldn't make out while crying and then disappeared. I closed my eyes. There was an ear-splitting sound of glass being broken. And when I opened them again, my world had vanished, and I was back in that goddamn white room. I averted my eyes from the hourglass. It would be some time before I was stable enough to recreate my world. God knows how long it had been since I last saw that place. The room felt too small. I felt the walls pushing against me in every direction, crushing me. It was so quiet. My heart wasn't beating, and I couldn't breathe. Out of the silence came a single sound that demanded my attention. The clink of tiny grains of sand bouncing off of glass. I knew I shouldn't check. I knew it would break me, but I had to know. There was a burning, morbid curiosity that demanded I turn my head. So I did. Something snapped inside of me, one final string binding me together. The last time I checked it, it was a little under 1/10 of the way there. That time, it was 1/20th of the way full. Stars swam in my vision, and I shrieked, drowning out the little sound of the hourglass. I smashed my head on the floor, not feeling anything, of course. After pausing briefly, I noticed a small slip of paper under the hourglass. I grabbed it, hoping for some kind of help. It could only have been from the djinn. It read,
I hope you didn't think the hourglass was accurate. I put it there for decoration. May its beautiful and sleek design ease some of your distress. Don't worry, you're nearly there. Or, perhaps, it has been but a few days. Time is quite unreliable, with nothing around to measure it against.
I thrashed and shouted, and smashed my frail body for hours, or maybe days. Hell, maybe even years. It took longer than I could fathom, but I found the tiny scraps of my determination. I had to make that hell worth it. It had to mean something in the end. No matter what, I would bring my mom back. Year 60? Or maybe 20? Could it have been 80? Ruth was gone. I forgot her face, and it became smooth skin. I forgot her voice, and she couldn't make a sound. I finally forgot who she was, and I never saw her again. All that remained was a name. Day after day, I walked into the office as details were abandoned. My fractured mind could no longer sustain my world. As I fell apart, so did it. Ruth walked up to me with a stack of files.
This week's work, hon. Keep up the great work, Michael.
She finished and walked off with a smile. Every day, it was the same lines. My imaginary friends ran out of any original dialogue. My co-workers now looked like grotesque caricatures of themselves. David had a big nose from the beginning. But as time passed, he lost all his features except one massive nose on his horrific fleshy face. Delilah's face was now dominated by a huge pair of full lips. Their voices were scrambled. Every word sounded like it was spoken alongside dozens of others. Which voice was their own? I had no idea. I walked out of the office. Whether or not I stayed meant nothing. It wasn't worth taking a peek at the files. I already knew what they were. Just stacks and stacks of my face with new traumatic backstories. My home came into sight as I drifted down the long main street. Buildings had disappeared, and I didn't even know which ones. The sky was an infinite white backdrop. I walked past the K-12 school that housed every child in my world and saw them playing in the yard.
Play with us, Michael!
They shouted together as one. The kids all looked like failed imitations of me at different ages. I hadn't seen my reflection in decades. There was no way to remember how I used to look. Once, I created a mirror in my world, but when I looked at it, all I saw was a blurry face with a nasty, sharp-toothed grin and yellow eyes that sucked in the world around them. There was a recent addition to my house. The thing that looked like Mom had left, and something that looked like Dad had replaced her. He wore the flannel and jeans he'd returned home from work in before demanding food or alcohol. His face was stuck in a familiar scowl. He'd look just like that when he hit Mom or threw things at me.
Michael, frail, weak, small, pathetic.
Dad's voice cut out and ended with static. He repeated that chant endlessly until each syllable was seared into my consciousness. There really wasn't much to that man. Maybe my memories were skewed. What if Dad had good moments? I wouldn't know. Time and trauma had washed the details away until all I could remember was the fear and sadness. I would fantasize about him being killed by a cellmate in prison. Hopefully, it hurt. Hopefully, it would be over something meaningless, like not sharing a carton of milk. Wouldn't that have been nice if there wasn't even a single person to give his death a thought? I imagined him on the floor of his cell with a toothbrush shiv through his neck. His cellmate would laugh at how pathetic it was. Then, his body would be cremated, shoved in a plastic bag, and thrown in a fucking dumpster. I would go to the landfill, find his ashes, and dance over them. It was time to accept that I wasn't going to make it. Year, it doesn't matter. Day, it's too late now. The town square was falling apart, and the road was full of bottomless pits. The sky was white, a white more oppressive than darkness. Few houses were left, and the once full streets were devoid of life. The air was laced with networks of cracks, and shards of broken constructs littered the ground. There was a persistent ringing in my ears. It grew louder and louder, reaching volumes I thought were impossible. The podium I stood behind was shoddy and sad. I tilted my head back and yelled into the sky. It didn't respond.
My friends! My only companions left in the world! It's time to say goodbye!
The last residents had gathered in front of me. They were faceless apparitions that wandered around and faded in and out as they pleased. They collapsed to the ground, screaming in anguish and crying hysterically.
Please, Michael! We don't want to die! We don't want to leave you!
Delilah shouted in a one-woman chorus of voices. Of my residents, she was the closest thing left to a real human. The last with human skin and hands that a preschooler could have drawn. Look at that, I thought. Hands were always hard for me, you know? I always drew the thumb too long and the fingers too short. Even if it were awful, Mom would put it on the fridge. She'd pat my head too and give me candy as a reward. I snapped back to attention.
I can't stay, Delilah. You'll fall apart. So will I. Thank you for being there for me all these years. I love you all.
I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. My residents shrieked and howled, their anguished wails filling every last corner of my world. Memories resurfaced. Hey, they sound like those black horse riders from The Lord of the Rings. Ring wraiths, right? Mom and I used to watch the whole trilogy in a day. Dad never let us finish, though. He wanted the TV to himself. so he would snatch the remote from my hands and yell at me to leave. My mind meandered. The deafening sound of glass shattering drowned out everything else. My world fractured, and the pieces disappeared into the abyss. Colors drained from the scenery like soap down a sink. The scene dredged up another memory. Oh yeah, that reminds me of when I dropped one of my Hot Wheels cars into the garbage disposal. I nicked my middle finger on the blade pretty deep, but I got the toy back. After fixing me up, Mom flipped her lid and scolded me for hours. She told Dad, maybe expecting him to back her up. No, he looked at me for a bit and turned around. He told me the stitches weren't worth a $30 copay, and I had to suck it up. Flashes of my life before kept pouring in, each hazier and more outlandish than the last. Eventually, once they conflicted, I realized what was happening. Wait, I never did any drawing. I never watched Lord of the Rings with Mom. She hated violent movies. I never cut my finger. I have never tried Hot Wheels. I howled with laughter, sitting on the ground as my world fell apart. Dad's figure stood a few yards away in the center of my dying world. His face was blurry, but his limbs were all attached, and he still had the same denim jeans and steel-toed boots, and that old faded flannel. He had haunted me for decades, following me and spitting out broken curses. For the last couple of years before my world's end, he could barely string together words. I couldn't get rid of him, no matter what. The more I tried to push him away, the closer he stuck to me. I looked him dead in what may have been his eyes and spoke to him for the final time in my world.
What did I do to you? I don't get why you hated me.
He gave no reaction whatsoever. Nothing would change. Nothing would give me closure.
I tried, Dad. I really did. Mom never let me outside as a kid. It really was just the three of us. That's all I had.
I walked up closer to him until we were nearly face to face.
I didn't do anything to make you hate me. Hell, I even tried to get your attention for years before I realized it was pointless. What the fuck did you want from me?
He was unmoved. I got much louder and angrier, seizing him by the shoulders.
You know, maybe if you bothered to raise me, I would have been closer to the son you wanted. But you didn't. Because you're weak, Dad. Even weaker than me.
Without realizing it, I was crying.
You were a gross, ugly, alcoholic loser. Your wife hated you. Your kid was terrified of you. And you couldn't save a dime. How pathetic is that? Grow the fuck up.
My grip tightened on Dad's shoulders.
You're a stupid drunk who got his stupid ass locked in prison for the rest of his worthless life.
I collapsed to the ground, yelling through tears.
I wish I could kill you myself, but even after all this, I doubt I have it in me.
I was on my knees on the ground, gripping his coat with all my strength.
I'm getting Mom back. You couldn't dream of doing what I've done. You would have cracked after a month in here.
His blurry face remained unreadable.
I wish I could have told you all this in the real world, even though I know I would never get through to you.
I let go of his coat and stared at the street as it faded to that all-consuming white. I heard cracking, and then an explosion of glass as Dad shattered into millions of tiny pieces. Then it was gone. All of it. My precious world, where I spent the vast majority of my life, was gone forever. Year? Oh, how they go by. Day. One day closer. When I regained awareness of that god-awful room, the hourglass was still there. It had been some time since my world was destroyed. Maybe years. Maybe millennia. The hourglass would toy with me. The sand was divided vertically, filling only the right side of the hourglass. Occasionally, the sand left the hourglass and danced around the room. When I tried to destroy it, it floated just out of reach. When I turned away to ignore it, it drifted back into my sight. I spent every moment taking inventory of what memories I had left. If I remembered them, I could reinforce their existence to prevent them from fading away. Things were desperate and getting worse. I couldn't draw the line between dreams, waking moments in the real world, and life in my world. I went through my childhood experiences, struggling to make sense of it all. I tried to recall my past.
I used to love playing with Ezekiel, the Jacobson couple's kid. We'd run in the mud and play tag when Mom wasn't watching. So much fun. I can't wait to see him again.
I reminisced while lying on the floor, staring at the white void above and chuckling to myself.
What else? I could never forget my 4th grade teacher, Ruth. She was the sweetest woman I had ever met. When things at home got bad, she held me close and gave me her homemade cookies.
I recounted. My friends and the kind people I thought were in my life. I couldn't wait to get out of this place and meet them. Sometimes I panicked and often forgot why I was in the white space. Eventually, my mind crumbled, and I was unsure of my existence.
What? What is this place?
I asked the void. I stood up and wandered around until I heard a new voice.
It's a dream, Michael.
The voice sounded like mine, but was much younger.
Who are you?
I replied.
Do you know why I'm here?
I was met with silence. A new voice answered, and it sounded the same as mine.
You're dead, Michael. What else could this be? You're dead.
It told me with a monotone inflection. A softer, more feminine voice cut in.
It's okay, Michael. You'll be out of here soon.
They sounded familiar, and their words filled me with warmth.
Who are you?
I asked again.
It's me, Michael. Your mom.
She replied softly. A hint of sadness tinged her voice. The space was devoid of sound for a moment.
Mom? Yeah, Mom. That could be it.
I spun in circles, searching for the source of the voices.
Excuse me, all of you. How do I get out of here? Just wake up, silly.
The young voice responded.
You don't.
The voice like mine told me.
Don't worry, Michael. You'll be home soon. I'll be waiting for you like always.
The voice that claimed to be my mom replied.
Hey, you guys seem to know me. What kind of person am I?
I asked.
I can't really remember anything. You're a gentle person, and you care about others.
The childish voice explained.
You're a selfish coward. Total failure. But you've made it this far. At least you have that.
The identical voice rebuked.
You're my kind and loving son. My only, most precious child. You are the most important person in my life.
Mom's voice comforted me.
Oh, so that's how it is.
I responded. The voices were gone, and I was alone once again. Time passed. I couldn't say how much, since I hardly ever formed a coherent thought. Mostly, I stared into the white void. When I could think, it was like TV static. I wasn't able to string together multiple ideas or imagine anything clearly. The only things I hung on to were my name and something about being in that place because of my mom. What was I doing there? Endless solitude had been gobbling up my memories for too long. The memories left were warped and changed. Old memories combined with memories from my imaginary world, and my dreams weaved themselves into my past.
I always hated feeling trapped.
I thought on one of my more lucid days. Dad once stuffed me in a closet as a punishment, and when Mom tried to stop him, he threw her across the room. Luckily, Johnny heard from outside and pulled Dad away. I reminisced about this imaginary event.
Mom told him not to call the cops, so Dad never faced any punishment, like always.
My mind went blank for a few hours after this.
I used to have this imaginary friend, but he was so creepy. Man, kids come up with the craziest things. It was huge. It had glowing eyes and a scary smile, but always kept me company. It loved its little practical jokes. We'd go back and forth for days.
I left feeling nostalgic for this fictitious life. This was my last lucid period, until the end of my life in the unending, oppressive, maddening, and empty space that I was trapped in for a century. Year 100. Day, the first of the rest of my life. Everything went black. The lights in my prison shut off in an instant. I finally opened my eyes to the ceiling of my apartment. My soft bed sheets caressed my body, and I marveled at how many objects there were. It was overstimulating. The sound of the fan, the smell of my clothes, and my senses were bombarded. It took half an hour just to acclimate to the sudden onslaught of stimuli, things barely remembered from this old life. Something felt wrong. This place was familiar, but I wasn't sure why. I had a loose grasp on who I was. I had a name. Michael? There were Pink Floyd posters against my wall. My new scenery sparked some recollection. I loved that band. I always meant to take Delilah, but I got too nervous every time, I thought. It was strange thinking of Delilah's name. I pictured my beloved friend and coworker, but she felt out of place. Everything felt out of place. I walked into my bathroom and looked in the mirror. A face I didn't recognize was mimicking my movements. It was wrong, terrifying. The lanky, pale man before me had one foot out the door. Heavy bags weighed down his eyes, and his posture was horrible. Was it me? The smell of eggs and toast wafted from the kitchen. When I entered, I found a thin, gaunt woman cooking breakfast. She had messy brown hair and wore thick glasses. She looked tired, but not sad.
Oh, Michael, dear, you're up. It's already 11 o'clock. You really slept in.
I gawked at her. She was familiar. Being unable to remember her was agitating. She was important, I could tell. I felt things, a warmth, a feeling of being protected. I looked into her eyes.
Miss? Mom? You've been gone, Mom. Where did you go?
Seeing her made me happy, but it brought back a feeling of loss. Why?
Mom, I'm late for work.
I paused and looked at the grandfather clock in the living room.
What work, Michael? You work from home, right?
She asked. What about the office? The kids?
Are you okay, Michael? Lie down for a bit. I'll make you some oatmeal.
I drifted to my room. Something new was on my end table. I made my way over to find a bloody chunk of flesh and a handwritten note under an ornate hourglass. The letter read,
Michael, I suppose congratulations are in order. You remain the sanest of any of my subjects. I fulfilled my end of the bargain, as you have undoubtedly seen. Now, you may go on to live a full life, right? Well, whatever is left of you, that is. Djinn of smoke and broken mirrors.
Djinn, an ear, an hourglass. Also familiar, also hard to place. The woman, Mom, walked into the room with a tray. In the darkness behind her, I thought I saw a tall figure with a sharp grin from ear to ear and vacuous yellow eyes. I screamed and hid under my covers.
Michael, what's wrong? Are you okay?
She rushed to my side and rubbed the blankets. Slowly, I lowered my sheets to meet her. The shadowy monster was gone.
Mom, could you tell me who I am? My memories, they're all mixed up. Please help me.
She looked at me with worry.
Michael, what's wrong? You've been acting strange all day. You can talk to me, you know?
Rather than responding to her questions, I raised my covers.
Please, tell me who I am.
She reached to place her hand on my own, causing me to flinch.
You're my kind and loving son, my only most precious child. You're the most important person in my life.
Her words sounded so familiar. I must have heard them in a dream. Mom told me her favorite stories from my childhood, trying to stitch the tattered fabric of my memories back together. But some damage can't be undone. Some gashes stay open, and some holes go unpatched. I was left with a patchwork mind filled with unraveled memories. It doesn't happen often, but when I have a lucid day, I gather my thoughts and tell my story to the orderlies and men in white coats, who have already heard it countless times. I can't find my closest friends, Johnny, David, and Delilah. They keep telling me that it is just one big delusion. My friends, my workplace, my life. The face in the mirror is not my own. No, it is Michael's face, whoever he is. And now, a long, jagged smile and a pair of washed-out yellow eyes wait around every corner, in every nook and cranny, in the dark, behind every door, in my dreams, just out of sight, and in every crevice of my broken mind. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some more of my episodes here.